The little girl tugged on the billionaire's sleeve with a grip that felt far too serious for a child of 6. Her brown eyes were wide, her small mouth pressed into a line of quiet fear. Around them, the Seattle park was full of bright afternoon light, children shrieking with joy on the carousel, parents laughing on benches, the smell of kettle corn floating through the spring air. But this child, Harper, saw none of it. She only saw the man standing by the black town car at the curb. The man with the gray coat and the phone pressed to his ear. The man who had been watching the carousel for 19 minutes. "Stay quiet. Follow me," Harper whispered, pulling Weston Holbrook by 2 fingers toward the bench near the fountain. Weston Holbrook, the 38-year-old chief executive of Holbrook Technologies, a man whose name appeared on the cover of business magazines twice a year, a man who commanded boardrooms with a single glance, allowed himself to be led by this tiny stranger because something in her voice made his chest go tight. His own daughter, Poppy, age 6, was still riding the painted horse, waving at him each time she came around. His driver, Nolan Briggs, stood exactly where Nolan always stood, near the park's north entrance, hands folded, face calm. Everything looked normal. Everything looked safe. "What is it?" Weston asked, kneeling down to Harper's level near the fountain. Harper's lip trembled. She looked up at him with those serious brown eyes. "Your driver gave that man a paper. I saw him do it last week too. The paper had your little girl's school name on it. I read it. I'm good at reading." Weston felt the blood leave his face. He turned his head slowly. Nolan was still standing at the north entrance. The man in the gray coat was still on his phone, and the carousel music kept playing, bright and cheerful, as Poppy came around again, waving both hands this time, calling, "Daddy, look at me." If you have a child in your life, a daughter, a son, a niece, a nephew, a grandchild you would do anything to protect, pause for a moment. Imagine you are Weston in this scene. Imagine a 6-year-old stranger has just told you that the person you trust most with your child's safety has been selling information about her. Would you listen to the child? Would you dismiss her? Subscribe to this channel right now and comment below what you would do in Weston's place. Your answer could help another parent somewhere in the world. Do not scroll past this. A child's warning saved a life in this story. Your comment might save a heart. Weston straightened up slowly. His knees felt weak in a way he had not felt since his wife, Rebecca, had passed 4 years ago from a sudden illness. Since then, it had been just him and Poppy, and he had built walls around their lives. Private school with round-the-clock guards, a gated estate on Mercer Island, a driver vetted by 3 separate background firms, a chief of staff, Roland Vance, who had been with him since the earliest days of Holbrook Technologies, and who personally approved every hire close to the family. And now a small girl with a green ribbon in her hair was telling him it had all been compromised. "Harper, Harper, where are you? Oh my goodness, I am so sorry, sir." A woman hurried over, flustered, pulling off a pair of gardening gloves. She was in her early 30s, wearing a bright red polo shirt with the words "Greenfield Park Attendants" stitched on the chest, and khaki pants. She was a beautiful African-American woman with warm brown skin, her hair pulled back in a neat bun, her face open and tired in the way only single mothers know how to be tired. Her name tag read, Celine Brooks. "She runs off. She always runs off when she sees something that bothers her," Celine said, placing a gentle hand on Harper's shoulder. "I hope she did not disturb you and your daughter." "She did not disturb me," Weston said carefully. His eyes went to Harper again. The child was looking up at her mother as if waiting for permission to speak more. "She is a very observant child," Weston added. Celine smiled a small, proud smile. "Too observant sometimes. She sees things the rest of us miss. Come on, Harper. Let the gentleman enjoy his afternoon." "Wait," Weston said. He reached into his jacket pocket and took out a business card. He wrote a private number on the back. "Mrs. Brooks, if you have a moment later today, I would very much like to speak with you, both of you. I have a small consulting matter I could use your daughter's eyes on. I will compensate you fairly for your time." Celine looked at the card, then at him, then at Harper, who gave her mother a tiny nod. "Thank you," Celine said softly. "We would be glad to meet with you." She took the card. Weston watched them walk away hand in hand toward the park's tool shed, where Celine kept her supplies. Then he turned and walked toward the carousel, lifted Poppy off the painted horse, pressed her to his chest, and did not let go of her all the way back to the car. He did not look at Nolan. He did not speak to Nolan. He simply said, "Take us home, please." Nolan nodded, opened the door, and smiled at Poppy the way he always did. Weston felt his stomach turn. Weston did not sleep that night. He sat in his study on the top floor of the estate, looking out over the dark water of Lake Washington, going through every memory of Nolan Briggs he could recall. 3 years of service. Never late. Never a complaint. Nolan had 2 grown sons in Tacoma, a wife who baked cookies for Poppy at Christmas. Nolan had driven Weston to the hospital the night Rebecca died. Nolan had cried in the parking lot that night, a quiet sob, standing beside the car while Weston went inside. And now a 6-year-old girl was telling him Nolan had passed a paper with Poppy's school schedule to a stranger. Weston opened his phone and looked at the card Celine had given him when she wrote her number on the back of his. Celine Brooks, Greenfield Park. He waited until 8 in the morning, then called. She picked up on the second ring. "Mr. Holbrook." "Please, Weston is fine. Mrs. Brooks, I wonder if you might be willing to meet me this morning. Somewhere private. I will send a car, or you are welcome to choose the location. I will pay you for your time regardless of what comes of the meeting. There is a small tea shop called Ember and Oak on Pike Street. I can meet you there at 10. Harper has a reading lesson after, so I cannot be long." 10 is perfect. Thank you, Mrs. Brooks. Celine is fine. He hung up, dressed in a navy blue sweater and gray trousers, and told his housekeeper he would be out for the morning. He did not call Nolan. He drove himself in a car he had not driven in 2 years, a green sedan that had belonged to Rebecca. He did not tell Roland Vance where he was going. He did not tell anyone. Celine was already at the tea shop when he arrived, seated at a corner table with Harper. Harper was drawing in a small sketchbook, her blue pencil moving in careful, confident strokes. Celine wore a bright maroon cardigan and a cream blouse. She looked up when he walked in and gave him a polite nod. Weston slid into the chair across from them. "Thank you both for coming." Harper looked up from her drawing. "You want to know about the paper?" "Yes," Weston said, "I do." Celine placed a gentle hand on Harper's back. "Go on, baby. Tell him everything." Harper took a breath. "Mama and I walk home from the park on Tuesdays because that is the day I have my library club. Last Tuesday we walked past the big house with the gold gate. Your house. I saw the tall man with the driver hat standing by the gate. He gave a paper to another man. The other man was in a gray coat. The paper was folded small, but I saw it. I saw the words. It said Glenridge Day School, Monday pickup 3:15, Tuesday music, Wednesday math tutor, Thursday ballet, Friday early out. That is my friend Poppy's school. I know because I saw her uniform yesterday at the park. The same one." Weston sat very still. His hands were cold. "And yesterday at the park," Harper continued, "the gray coat man was there again. He was watching Poppy on the carousel. I got scared." Celine looked at Weston with quiet, steady eyes. "Weston, if any part of what she is telling you is true, you need to take it seriously. My daughter does not make things up. She never has." "I believe her," Weston said. "Celine, I need to ask you something, and I understand if the answer is no. I need someone with a legal mind to help me think through what to do next. I will not go to the police yet because I do not know how deep this goes. Your business card says you were a paralegal before the park job. Would you be willing to work with me as a private consultant, starting today? I will pay you $100,000 for the next month of your time, regardless of how long the work takes." You and Harper can stay at a guest cottage on my estate while we sort this out. It is safer there. There is a full-time kitchen and a reading room Harper would love." Selene blinked. Her eyes filled for a moment, then cleared. She looked at Harper. Harper nodded. "Thank you, Weston, we accept, with gratitude." The guest cottage at the Hallbrook estate was a small two-bedroom stone house tucked behind the main residence, surrounded by blooming dogwood trees. Selene and Harper moved in that same afternoon with 2 suitcases and a box of Harper's favorite books. Poppy was delighted. Within an hour she had pulled Harper upstairs to show her the playroom in the main house, and the 2 girls had disappeared into a world of stuffed animals and tea parties. Weston stood in the kitchen of the main house, watching Selene unpack a small bag of groceries she had insisted on bringing. "You did not need to bring anything. The pantry is stocked." "I know, I wanted to. It makes me feel like I am contributing." "Your insight is the contribution, Selene." She smiled. "Still, I brought good tea. You will thank me later." He laughed for the first time in what felt like weeks. Then he sobered. "I called a private investigator this morning. Her name is Delphine Carter. She is a former FBI agent, now independent. She is the best in the Pacific Northwest. She is coming at 2. I want you in the meeting." "I will be there." Delphine Carter arrived precisely at 2. She was a tall woman in her 50s, silver hair cut short, wearing a navy pantsuit and sensible flat shoes. She shook Weston's hand, nodded politely to Selene, and took out a small notebook. "Tell me everything," Delphine said. Weston told her. Selene added the legal framing. Harper, brought in briefly, repeated her observation word for word. Delphine watched Harper's face as she spoke, and when Harper finished, Delphine looked at Weston and said, "That child is telling the truth. I have interviewed 3,000 witnesses in my career. She is not making this up." "What do we do?" Weston asked. "I will put a tail on Nolan Briggs starting tomorrow. I will also pull his financial records through legal subpoena channels. If he is being paid, there will be a trail. I will need 72 hours. In the meantime, continue your life as normal. Do not change your routine. Do not confront Nolan. Do not mention any of this to anyone on your staff, not your chief of staff, not your security team, not your housekeeper. Is that understood?" "Understood," Weston said. "And Mrs. Brooks, you and your daughter will remain on the estate for the duration. The estate has its own private security, correct?" "Yes, 6 rotating officers, all of them vetted by Roland Vance, my chief of staff." Delphine's eyebrow lifted slightly. "We will vet them again, independently." Selene looked at Weston. Weston nodded. "Do it, whatever it costs." That evening, Selene sat with Weston in the library after the girls were asleep. He had a tumbler of sparkling water. She had a cup of the tea she had brought. The fire was low and warm. "You are taking this well," she said softly. "Most men in your position would be raging." "I am raging. I am just doing it quietly. Rebecca used to tell me that anger is like a hot coal. Hold it too tight, you burn your own hand." "She sounds wise." She was. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Selene said, "Tell me about Poppy. I want to understand her." And Weston did. He talked for an hour about his little girl, about how she had learned to tie her shoes last year, about her love for painted horses and purple crayons and pancakes with blueberries, about how she still sometimes asked when Mommy was coming home. Selene listened with her whole heart. When he finished, she said, "You are a good father, Weston." He looked at her. "Thank you, I needed to hear that." 72 hours later, Delphine Carter returned with a thick manila folder. She placed it on Weston's desk in the library and opened it with the precision of a surgeon. "Nolan Briggs has been receiving payments of $5,000 per week into a secondary bank account he opened 8 months ago. The payments originate from a shell company called Tidecrest Holdings, LLC. Tidecrest is registered in Delaware. Its sole listed director is a man named Eugene Marsh, who does not exist. The address is a mailbox service. The email used to register the company was accessed, on 3 occasions, from an IP address inside this estate. Weston sat back in his chair. Inside this estate? Yes. Selene leaned forward. Who has access to the estate network? Delphine looked at Weston. Weston felt his jaw tighten. My chief of staff, Roland Vance, the head of household, Mrs. Patricia Elwood, and the security team, 6 officers, that is everyone with login credentials. I have cross-referenced the timestamps with the building access logs, Delphine said. On all 3 occasions, only one person was in the East Wing when that IP address was used, Roland Vance. The room went quiet. Selene placed her hand on the desk, not touching Weston but near enough to offer presence. Weston, this is a lot. Roland has been with me for 12 years, Weston said slowly. He was there when Rebecca got sick. He arranged her hospice care. He was a pallbearer at her funeral. I know, Delphine said. I am sorry, but the data is the data. And I need to tell you one more thing. The man in the gray coat that Harper saw, I identified him through traffic camera footage near your gate. His name is Curtis Vale. He is a former corporate espionage contractor based out of Portland. He has been hired 3 times in the past 5 years for industrial information theft. He has no record of violent crime, but he specializes in leverage, blackmail, extortion, information sales. Why would Roland hire someone like that? My guess, Roland has been selling Hallbrook Technologies trade secrets, your upcoming chip design most likely. Curtis Vale is the middleman who connects Roland to the buyer, and the Poppy schedule is leverage. If Roland gets caught, he has something over you, something that makes you negotiate instead of prosecute. He is not planning to hurt your daughter. He is planning to threaten to. Weston stood up and walked to the window. Outside, Poppy and Harper were in the garden chasing butterflies. Selene watched him. She did not speak. She let him feel what he needed to feel. After a long moment, he turned around. What do we do? We build the case, Delphine said. We gather every piece of evidence. Bank records, server logs, Curtis Vale's movements, Nolan's communications. We do it quietly. And then we take it to the FBI, all of it, at once. Roland will be arrested. Curtis Vale will be arrested. Nolan will be given the chance to cooperate in exchange for a reduced charge. Your company will be saved. Your daughter will be safe. How long? 2 weeks, maybe 3. Do it, Weston said. Whatever you need. Selene stood and walked to him. She placed a hand on his arm. You are not alone in this. Harper and I are here. We will see this through with you. He looked at her. Something passed between them that neither of them named. Thank you, Selene. Over the next week, life on the Hallbrook estate settled into a strange, warm rhythm. Weston continued to go to the office each morning, driven by Nolan, smiling the same polite smiles, shaking hands with Roland in the hallway as if nothing had changed. It took everything in him not to grab Roland by the collar and demand answers, but he remembered Rebecca's coal. He held steady. In the evenings, he came home to something he had not had in 4 years. A house with voices in it, laughter in the hallways, the sound of 2 small girls arguing over which bedtime story to read. Selene cooked dinner most nights, and she was an excellent cook. She made a roast chicken with rosemary and lemon that Weston ate 3 helpings of. She made a sweet potato pie from her grandmother's recipe in South Carolina, where she had grown up before moving to Washington State for college. You are spoiling me, Weston said one night, pushing his empty plate away. You are paying me $100,000. This is the least I can do. It is more than the least. It is the best meal I have had in years. She smiled down at her plate. My grandmother taught me. She said food is how you show people they matter. You make me feel like I matter. The words slipped out before he could catch them. Selene looked up. Her eyes were kind. You do matter, Weston, not because of what you own, because of who you are when no one is watching. He did not know what to say to that, so he simply said, "Thank you." That weekend, Poppy came into the kitchen holding Harper's hand. Daddy, Harper and I want to have a sleepover. Can Harper sleep in my room tonight? We have a plan. What is the plan? Harper spoke up, serious as always. Stuffed Animal Hospital. I am the doctor. Poppy is the nurse. We are going to fix all the bears. Well then, a hospital cannot run without nurses and doctors. Yes, you may have a sleepover. The girls squealed and ran upstairs. Celine laughed, leaning against the counter. Harper has not had a friend like Poppy. She has always been a little different. The other kids at the park do not know what to do with a 6-year-old who reads at a 4th grade level and notices everything. Poppy needs a friend like Harper too. She has been lonely since Rebecca passed. I have tried to fill the space, but a father is not a sister. Celine looked at him thoughtfully. You are filling more space than you think. Later that night, Delphine called with an update. Roland had made a phone call from his car earlier that day. Delphine's team had captured the conversation. Roland had been speaking to someone named Marlon Deere, the chief technology officer at a rival chip manufacturing firm in Austin, Texas. Roland was offering to deliver the final schematic of the Hallbrook-Hawthorne processor, a project 2 years in development and worth an estimated $800 million, in exchange for $15 million wired to an offshore account. We have him on a wiretap with probable cause, Delphine said. The FBI has agreed to take the case. Agent Sophia Redwell out of the Seattle field office is running point. She wants to meet with you and Mrs. Brooks tomorrow morning at a neutral location. Tell her yes. Weston hung up and walked out to the garden. Celine was there, sitting on a bench under the dogwoods, watching the stars. He sat down beside her. We have him, Weston said quietly. She nodded. I know, I could see it on your face. I feel like I should be relieved. Instead, I feel tired. That is how betrayal works. It does not leave room for relief, only for grieving. He looked at her. In the moonlight, her face was soft and steady, and he felt something in his chest shift, something that felt like the first warm morning after a long winter. Celine. Yes. I do not know what happens after this is over, but I would like us to find out together. You and Harper, me and Poppy, whatever it looks like. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I would like that too, Weston. Let us get through this first. Then we will see what morning looks like. He took her hand. She let him. They sat under the dogwoods for a long time. Pause right here. A widowed father is trusting a woman he just met with the most dangerous moment of his life. A widowed mother is placing her only child inside the home of a man whose world is under attack. Would you have the courage to trust like that? Or would you wall yourself off forever? Drop a heart in the comments if you believe second chances at love are real. Share this story with someone who needs to hear that kindness still wins. And please subscribe. Because the next chapter is where everything nearly falls apart. The meeting with Agent Sophia Redwell took place in a private conference room at a downtown Seattle hotel. Sophia was a woman in her late 40s, wearing a deep green blazer and charcoal slacks, her black hair pinned neatly. She had the calm of someone who had seen every kind of crime and was no longer surprised by any of them. Mr. Hallbrook, Mrs. Brooks, Ms. Carter, let me be direct. We have enough evidence now to pursue an indictment on Mr. Vance for wire fraud, industrial espionage, and conspiracy. We can also charge Curtis Vale and Marlon Deere as co-conspirators. What we need from you, Mr. Hallbrook, is 2 things. First, we need you to continue acting normally around Mr. Vance for the next 7 to 10 days while we finalize the case and coordinate with our colleagues in Texas regarding Mr. Deere. Second, we need a sworn statement from you and from your daughter's friend Harper, under appropriate protective conditions, describing what Harper witnessed near your residence. Harper is 6, Celine said carefully. I understand. We will do it in a child advocacy center with a trained specialist. It will be gentle. Mrs. Brooks, I have reviewed your background. You were a paralegal at Haldane and Kirch in Seattle before your husband's accident. You understand the process. I do. Then you know this is the right path. I do. Weston signed the cooperation agreement. Selin signed on Harper's behalf. Delphine handed over her full investigative file. On the way home in the car, Weston looked out the window. Nalen is still driving me, every morning. Nalen is the smallest piece of this, Selin said. Keep your eyes on the bigger picture. Roland is the real target. I know. I just keep thinking about him crying in the hospital parking lot that night. Was that real, or was it already a performance? It was probably real, Weston. People can love you and still hurt you. People can grieve with you and still be weak. Roland is a weak man who made terrible choices. That does not erase the years he stood by you. It also does not excuse what he is doing now. Both things can be true. Weston turned to her. How did you get so wise? I married a man I loved. I lost him. I raised a child alone. Wisdom is the only thing you can grow from that kind of soil. That evening, Weston sat in the playroom with Poppy and Harper. They were building a fort out of sofa cushions. Harper was directing the construction with great seriousness. Mr. Holbrook, Harper said, placing a final cushion. Yes, Harper. Are the bad men going to jail? They are, sweetheart, very soon. Good, because Poppy is my best friend now, and I do not want anything to happen to her. Poppy wrapped her arms around Harper's neck. You are my best friend forever, Harper. Weston watched them and felt his throat tighten. A 6-year-old girl had saved his daughter. A 6-year-old girl had seen what a dozen adult professionals had missed, and she was now hugging his little girl like they had always been sisters. He went looking for Selin. She was in the kitchen, washing a teacup. He walked up behind her and placed his hand gently on her shoulder. Selin, when this is over, I would like to court you properly. I want to be clear about my intentions. She turned to face him, the teacup forgotten. Weston. I know it is soon. I know we have not known each other long, but I also know what I see. You are steady. You are kind. You are the strongest person I have met in years, and Harper is a miracle. I would like to spend whatever years I have left being worthy of both of you. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she smiled. Yes, Weston, when this is over you may court me properly, and I hope you are very good at it. He laughed and kissed her forehead gently. I will practice. Per noticed something. She and Selin had gone with Poppy to pick her up from Glenridge Day School. It was the first time Selin had joined the pickup routine, and she had brought Harper along because Harper was on a half-day at her own school and wanted to see Poppy's classroom. Nalen drove them in the town car. He did not know Selin and Harper were coming. He had been told only that he was picking up Poppy. When he saw Selin and Harper step into the back seat beside him at the estate, he had looked at them in the mirror for a beat too long. Selin had noticed. She had filed it away. At the school, Selin and Harper waited by the flagpole while Poppy came running out with her backpack. Harper's eyes, always scanning, landed on a white van parked across the street from the school. It had no markings. Its windows were tinted. Its engine was running. 2 men sat in the front seat. One was Curtis Vale, the man in the gray coat, though today he wore a dark blue jacket. The other was a man Harper did not recognize. Harper tugged on Selin's sleeve. Mama, the gray coat man is in that van, right there. Selin did not turn her head. She crouched down and pretended to tie Harper's shoe. Are you sure, baby? I am sure. His face is the same. Selin stood up slowly, picked up Harper, and walked with unhurried grace to the school's security guard, a kind man in his 60s named Officer Hutchins. Officer Hutchins, there is a van across the street, 2 men inside. I have reason to believe they are waiting to take a child. Please call the police immediately. Do not approach the van. My name is Selin Brooks. I am here with Harper Brooks and Poppy Holbrook. Officer Hutchins did not question her. He had been a Seattle police officer for 30 years before retiring to this job. He pressed the emergency button on his radio, quietly radioed a code, and stepped between the van and the school's main door. Within 4 minutes, 3 Seattle police cars arrived from different directions, silent, no sirens. The van tried to pull away. It was blocked. Curtis Vale and his partner were pulled out and taken into custody without a struggle. In the back of the van, officers found zip ties, a chloroform-soaked cloth in a sealed bag, and a printed photograph of Poppy Holbrook. When Weston arrived at the school 30 minutes later, having been called by Agent Redwell directly, Poppy was sitting on a bench in the principal's office eating a granola bar, perfectly safe, perfectly unaware of how close she had come. Harper was sitting beside her, holding her hand. Celine was speaking calmly with 2 FBI agents. Weston walked past the agents, knelt in front of both girls and wrapped them in his arms. "You two," he said, voice thick, "you two are my heroes." Poppy giggled. "Harper saved me again, Daddy." "Yes, baby, she did." He stood up and crossed to Celine. He did not care who was watching. He took her face gently in both hands and pressed his forehead to hers. "Celine, I cannot lose her, and I cannot lose you, either of you." "You will not," Celine whispered. "We are here, we are all here." Agent Redwell cleared her throat gently. "Mr. Holbrook, this changes the timeline. We are moving tonight. All arrests will happen simultaneously. Mr. Vance at his residence, Mr. Deere in Austin, Mr. Briggs at the estate. We need you at a safe house with your daughter and the Brooks family for the next 12 hours. "Whatever you need," Weston said. He scooped up both girls, one in each arm, and walked out of the school with Celine at his side. The safe house was a modest 3-bedroom rental in a quiet suburb of Bellevue, staffed by 2 FBI agents around the clock. That night, Weston sat at the kitchen table with Celine and Delphine as Agent Redwell laid out the operation on a tablet. "At 10 p.m. tonight, teams will move in on 3 locations simultaneously. Mr. Vance will be arrested at his home in Kirkland. Mr. Briggs will be arrested at his residence in Tacoma. Our colleagues in Austin will take Mr. Deere at his office. Curtis Vale and his accomplice, identified as Terrence Hoban, are already in custody from the school incident. We have their phones. We are pulling their messages now. We expect this to be the largest industrial espionage case in the state this year." "What happens to Holbrook Technologies?" Weston asked. "Your company is untouched. The crime was committed against you, not by you. Your board will need to be informed. We recommend you hold an internal meeting tomorrow morning with a security escort. You will want to make a statement to your employees." "I will." "Mrs. Brooks," Agent Redwell said, "your quick thinking at the school saved a child. I want that on record. On behalf of the Bureau, thank you." Celine nodded. "Harper saw it, I just listened." Listening to a 6-year-old is not a small thing. Most adults would not have. At exactly 10 p.m., the arrests went down. Agent Redwell received 3 confirmation calls within 15 minutes. Weston sat on the couch in the safe house with Poppy asleep on his lap and Harper curled up beside him, and he watched his old life crumble and a new one begin at the same moment. Celine sat across from him, holding a mug of tea. "Are you okay?" "I am better than okay. I am free." "Free of what?" "Of the sense that something was wrong and I could not name it. For months I have felt off. Now I understand why." "You are a perceptive man, Weston. You just needed someone to help you see." "I needed Harper, and I needed you." He smiled at her, and she smiled back. And for the first time in 4 years he understood what Rebecca had meant when she had told him, on the last night of her life, that love would find him again if he let it. The next morning, Weston held a meeting with his executive team at Holbrook Technologies. He told them the truth. He told them about Roland. He told them about the chip schematic that had almost been sold. He told them about a 6-year-old girl who had noticed what 12 security professionals had missed. He did not mention Celine by name, but he said, I have been helped by extraordinary people. I will be introducing one of them to you all very soon." The staff applauded, several of them cried. Roland had been well liked. His betrayal cut many hearts at once, but the company was safe and the path forward was clear. That afternoon, Weston signed an offer letter for a new position at Holbrook Technologies, Senior Legal Counsel, Executive Office. The name on the offer was Celine Brooks. He walked the paper back to the estate himself and handed it to her across the kitchen table. "If you want it," he said, "no pressure, you do not owe me anything, but I would be honored." Celine read the letter. She read the salary. She read the benefits. She read the line that said start date to be determined by you. She looked up at him, eyes bright. "Yes, Weston, I want it, thank you." The legal proceedings moved quickly. Roland Vance pleaded guilty within 3 weeks to avoid a longer sentence and was given 12 years in federal prison. Curtis Vale received 18 years for his role in the attempted kidnapping and corporate espionage. Terrence Hoban received 15. Marlon Deere, the CTO in Austin, struck a plea deal and received 8 years, along with a permanent ban from the semiconductor industry. Nalin Briggs cooperated fully, testified against all three, and received a reduced sentence of 3 years at a minimum security facility. His wife came to the estate the day after his arrest to return a set of keys and apologize, weeping, and Weston simply hugged her and told her it was not her fault. She left with her dignity intact. The Holbrook-Hawthorne processor launched on schedule 6 months later and became the best-selling chip in the company's history. Through all of this, Celine worked quietly and brilliantly as senior legal counsel, rebuilding the company's internal compliance structures and personally interviewing every new hire for the executive floor. Harper started at Glenridge Day School in the fall, placed 2 grades ahead, in a program for gifted children. Poppy and Harper were now inseparable, officially declared sisters by choice. In a small ceremony they invented themselves in the garden, complete with friendship bracelets and a solemn promise read aloud from a piece of notebook paper. Weston and Celine dated properly. He took her to dinner at small restaurants where no one recognized him. He took her on long walks in the Arboretum. He listened to her stories about her late husband, a kind high school teacher named Damon who had died in a 3-car accident on Interstate 5 2 years before Weston met her. He told her more stories about Rebecca. They did not compete with the people they had loved and lost. They made room for them. One evening, 6 months after the arrests, Weston sat on the back porch of the estate with Delphine Carter. Delphine had stayed on as a permanent consultant for Holbrook Technologies, heading up a new internal security division. "You are happy, Weston." "I am happier than I have been since Rebecca. I did not think that was possible." It is funny how a 6-year-old with a good eye changed everything. She did not just change everything. She gave me back my life, her and her mother. Delphine lifted her glass of lemonade. To observant children. To observant children. That night, Weston lay in bed and looked at the ceiling for a long time. Then he reached into the drawer of his nightstand and took out a small velvet box. He had bought the ring 3 weeks ago. He had been waiting for the right moment. He thought he knew now when it would be. Spring returned to Seattle. The dogwoods at the estate bloomed again. The city parks filled with children and families and kettle corn vendors. And on a bright Saturday afternoon, Weston Holbrook drove his green sedan to Greenfield Park and walked with Celine Brooks and Harper and Poppy toward the old carousel where it had all begun. Celine wore a bright blue sundress and a light green cardigan. Poppy wore a maroon dress with white flowers. Harper wore red overalls with a white t-shirt, her favorite outfit, and a green ribbon in her hair, the same ribbon she had worn the day she first saw the paper at the gate. "I want to ride the horse again, Daddy," Poppy said. "Of course, baby." He bought 4 tickets. Celine and the girls climbed on. Weston stood at the railing and watched the carousel turn. Celine rode the horse beside Poppy, laughing, her head thrown back in the sunlight. Harper rode a painted swan and waved at him every time she came around. When the ride ended, Weston helped Celine down. Then he knelt on one knee in the grass by the fountain, exactly where Harper had first pulled him to safety with two small fingers almost a year before. Celine Brooks, a child pulled me to this spot once and saved my daughter's life. Today I am kneeling here of my own free will to ask you to save mine. Will you marry me? He opened the velvet box. Inside was a simple, beautiful ring, a round diamond set in a band of rose gold. Celine's hands went to her mouth. Tears ran down her cheeks. Harper and Poppy, who had been standing nearby pretending not to watch, squealed and ran to her side. "Say yes, Mama," Harper said. "Say yes, Celine," Poppy echoed. Celine looked at Weston. Her eyes were shining. "Yes, Weston, 100 times yes." He slid the ring onto her finger. He stood. He kissed her. The girls cheered. A few park-goers who had been watching burst into applause. A woman pushing a stroller wiped her eyes. An old man on a bench tipped his hat. They were married that summer in the garden of the estate under the dogwoods. Harper and Poppy were the flower girls. Agent Sophia Redwell attended. Delphine Carter gave a toast that made everyone laugh. Officer Hutchins, the retired Seattle officer from Glenridge Day School, walked Celine down the aisle in place of her father, who had passed years ago. Celine wore a long cream dress embroidered with small green leaves. Weston wore a blue suit. The reception lasted until the stars came out. The girls fell asleep on a picnic blanket under the dogwoods, arms wrapped around each other. Weston and Celine danced slowly on the lawn to an old song neither of them had heard in years. "Are you happy?" he whispered. "I am home," she said. That fall, Celine returned part-time to full legal practice, opening a small pro bono family law clinic in downtown Seattle that provided free legal services to widowed single mothers. She named it the Damon Brooks Legal Clinic, after her first husband. Weston funded it quietly and never asked for credit. The clinic served over 200 families in its first year. Harper's gift for observation continued to grow. She entered a program for gifted children at the University of Washington's Early Studies Division at age 8 and began working with child psychologists who specialized in hyperobservant children. By the time she was 10, she had co-authored a children's book with a university professor titled What I See, a book for kids who notice everything. It became a bestseller. The profits went to the Damon Brooks Legal Clinic. Poppy and Harper grew up as sisters. They shared a room by choice for years. They went to the same schools. They fought the way sisters do and made up the way sisters do. When Poppy got married 15 years later, Harper was her maid of honor. When Harper graduated from law school 12 years after the park incident, Poppy was in the front row. Weston and Celine had one more child together, a son they named Theo. He was born 2 years after the wedding, in a Seattle hospital on a rainy Tuesday morning. Poppy and Harper were the first to hold him after his parents. Harper looked at the baby and said, very seriously, "He has good eyes. He sees things." And he did. Grief, 6, if you counted Poppy, who had needed a sister. 7, if you counted Weston, who had needed a reason to believe again. Sometimes the biggest rescues come from the smallest hands. And sometimes a 6-year-old with a green ribbon in her hair and a gift for noticing things saves a whole family just by telling the truth.